Welcome to Whispers of Ink. I'm Machado de Assis, and now I will read one of my stories.
Let's start with the book The Coveted One of the People, which is part of my novels collection. Chapter 1. Counselor, now you're speaking in verse. Every man should carry a lyre in his heart, said the other, or he isn't truly a man. Let that lyre ring from time to time out constantly, not for just any reason, but now and then stirred by certain memories. Tell me, do you think I seem like a poet, even with all the laws of the kingdom and my gray hair? It's because we're walking up this hill, passing by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There, that famous hilltop. Ahead is a house. Come on, let's keep walking. Let's go. Divine Quintilia. All of those faces passing by are different now, yet they speak to me of that old time, as if they were the very same. It's the lyre again, echoing inside, and imagination does the rest. Divine Quintilia. Was her name really Quintilia? Yes. I remember seeing her once when I was at the medical school. A beautiful young woman with that name. People said she was the most stunning girl in town. It must have been her. She had that reputation. Was she tall and thin? Yes, exactly. What happened to her? She died on April 20th, 1859. I will never forget that day. Let me tell you a story on that still moves me deeply, and I believe it might move you too. Look, that house right there? That was where she lived, with her uncle, a retired naval officer. They also owned another house in Cosme Velho. Now, how old do you think she was when I met her? If it was in 1855. In 1855, yes. Then she must have been about 20. No, 30. 30? 30 years old. But she didn't look it, and no enemy gave her that age. She herself admitted it, even insisted on it proudly. In fact, one of her friends claimed Quintilia wasn't more than 27, but, since both were born on the same day, that friend was trying to make herself seem younger by comparison. Don't be sarcastic. Be careful. Irony doesn't sleep well beside nostalgia. But isn't nostalgia itself an irony of time and fate? There I go again, sounding wise. But yes, she was 30. And yet, truly, she didn't seem it. I remember clearly that she was tall and thin. Her eyes, as I used to say back then, looked like they had been cut from the cover of a night sky. But even though they were dark, they held no mystery or depth. Her voice was very soft, slightly marked by the accent of São Paulo. Her mouth wide, and her teeth gave her face a kind of smiling look, even when she was just talking. She laughed a lot too, and it was her laughter, together with her eyes, that hurt me deeply for a while. But if her eyes had no secrets, well, they really had none. So much so that I once thought they were like open castle gates, and her laugh was the trumpet call inviting knights to enter. We already knew her. João Nobrigami law office partner and I, both of us were just starting out in law, and we were as close as two friends could be. But it never crossed our minds to fall for her. At the time, she was at the peak of her beauty, wealth, and elegance. She belonged to the highest social circle. Yet one day, during a break between acts of the Puritans at the old Provisorio Theater, I was walking through a corridor and I overheard a group of young men talking about her as if she were an unbreakable fortress. Two of them admitted they had tried something, but with no success, and all of them were amazed that a woman like her remained single, as if it made no sense. They joked about it. One said she had promised to marry only after she gained some weight. Another thought she was waiting for her uncle's second youth before marrying him. Another guessed she had probably ordered an angel from the gates of heaven. These silly jokes upset me a lot, especially coming from those who had actually confessed to courting or loving her. That, I thought, was the height of disrespect. But one thing they all agreed on was that she was extraordinarily beautiful. On that point, they were full of passion and honesty. Oh, I still remember. She was very beautiful. The next day, when I arrived at the office, between two cases that never showed up, I told Norberga about the conversation from the night before. Norberga laughed at first, thought for a moment, then walked around the room before stopping in front of me. He looked at me in silence. "I bet you're in love with her," I asked him. "Okay," he said. "You don't either?" "Well, it made me think of something. What if we both try to win her over? What do we lose? Nothing. Either she throws us out, which we were already expecting, or she accepts one of us. And then the other will at least see his friend happy." "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Nobrega added that it wasn't only her beauty that made her appealing. Keep in mind, I had this idea that he was a practical guy, but really, he was more of a dreamer. He spent his time reading and building these imaginary social and political systems. According to him, those theater guys avoided talking about the girl's fortune, which was one of her charms, and probably why some people felt so sad and others so sarcastic. He told me, "Listen, let's not act like money is divine, but don't throw it away either. Let's not say it gives everything, but admit it gives something, even a lot. This watch, for example. So let's fight for our quintilliers, yours or mine, but most likely mine, because I'm better looking than you." "Counselor, did you really confess that just as a joke?" "Just as a joke, still smelling of the academy benches, we got into something so important, something that could have gone nowhere, but ended up meaning a lot. It began foolishly, almost like child's play without any real honesty behind it. But man plans, and nature decides. We knew her, though not well or often. But once we decided to act together, something new entered our lives. And within a month, we were fighting. Fighting? Almost. We hadn't counted on her the way she enchanted both of us, strongly. In just a few weeks, we barely talked about Quintilia anymore, and when we did, it was with indifference. We started trying to trick each other and hide what we truly felt. It all ended quietly after 6 months, without anger, fights, or any dramatic scenes. We still spoke when chance brought us together, but by then we had separate tables. I was beginning to see a glimpse of the drama unfolding. "Call it a tragedy," I added. Because not long after, whether because of something she said or out of despair at never winning her, Norberga left me alone. He got himself appointed as a local judge in the countryside of Bahia, and wasted away there, dying before his term was over. I swear it wasn't his so-called practical mindset that made him leave me. He, who had always praised the value of money, died like a simple werther driven by passion. Without the pistol, at least. Poison works too. And the love Quintilia gave him? It was something like poison. That's what killed him, and it still hurts me today. But I can see from your face that I am boring you. Don't say that, I interrupted. I swear not bored. That last remark just slipped out as a joke. Please go on, counselor. You were saying he was left alone. Quintilia didn't let anyone stay alone for long, not because of her kindness, but because others kept coming around. Many would stop by to sip a little hope from her smile, then go dine elsewhere. She didn't favor one man more than another, but she was gentle, charming, and had those soft, wandering eyes that make jealous men suffer. I felt bitter jealousy, sometimes unbearable. Every young man seemed like a suitor, and every suitor looked like the devil himself. At first, I couldn't stand it. But eventually, I got used to seeing them come and go, passing through her life like travelers staying just one night. What really scared me were the ones who came hidden behind her friends' gloves. I believe there were 2 or 3 attempts like that, though nothing ever came of them. Quintilia made it clear she wouldn't do anything without consulting her uncle, and he, as expected, advised her to refuse. She already knew what he'd say. The poor old man never liked male visitors, always afraid his niece might choose someone and get married. She had become such a crutch for him, a sort of support for his old wounded soul, that he feared losing her completely. Could that be the reason for her steady detachment? Probably not. What I do notice is that you were more stubborn than the others. At first, I let myself be fooled. Among so many failed attempts from other suitors, Quintilia seemed to prefer me. She talked with me more openly and intimately than with anyone else. So much so, people actually started to believe we would get married. But what did we talk about? About everything she never discussed with others. It amazed me how someone who loved balls and outings, who enjoyed dancing and laughing, could be so serious and thoughtful with me so different from what she seemed to be. The reason is clear. She found your conversation less boring than that of other men. Thank you. But the truth was deeper, and the difference between us only grew stronger over time. When life here in the city bored her too much, she would go stay at Cosmi Velho. There, our conversations became even more frequent and longer. I can't explain it to you, and you probably wouldn't understand. But those hours with her became part of my very life, filling me with everything she had to give. Many times, I wanted to tell her how I felt. But my words were afraid, trapped inside my heart. I wrote letter after letter, but they all felt cold, wordy, or overly dramatic. Besides, she gave no sign, always acting like an old friend. In early 1857, my father fell seriously ill in Itabare. I rushed to see him and found him near death. That event kept me away from the city for about 4 months. I returned by the end of May. Quintilia greeted me with sadness, clearly sharing in my grief. I saw it clearly, me sorrow had passed into her eyes. But wasn't that love? I believed it was, and I began to arrange my life so that we could marry. But then, her uncle fell gravely ill. Quintilia wouldn't be alone if he died. She had plenty of relatives scattered around, and now she lived with her cousin, Donna Ana, a widow, in the house on Rua do Catete. Still, I knew that her deepest affection would go with him. And in that fragile moment between life and death, I might finally get what I wanted. My uncle's illness didn't last long. Age worked against him, and he passed away within 2 weeks. I'll tell you now, his death reminded me of my father's. The pain I felt then came back, just as strong. Quintilia saw me hurting. She understood there were 2 reasons for my sorrow, and later she told me she actually welcomed the sadness happening so close together. After all, we'd both have to face it sooner or later. Her words felt like a hint, maybe even a quiet invitation. 2 months later, I decided it was time to ask her to marry me. Donna Anna still lived with her, and they had moved to Cosme Velho. I went there and found them both sitting on the terrace near the mountain. It was 4 in the afternoon on a Sunday. Donna Anna, who probably guessed we were more than friends, gave us some space. Finally, that was how I started. We were alone on the quiet, almost wild terrace. My plan was to say everything fast, before fear could stop me. Even so, it cost me a lot more than I expected. Facing battle would have been easier, and I swear I wasn't born for war. But this small, delicate woman had a power over me no one else ever did, before or since. "Well?" she asked. She had already figured out what I wanted to say by the way I looked. She let me speak anyway, maybe to prepare her answer. And her answer was both a question and a refusal. "Marry? Why?" "It would be better," she said, "if we stayed friends like before." I told her that friendship, for me, had only ever been the guard keeping love locked up. But now, after holding it back for so long, it couldn't hold it anymore. She smiled at my metaphor, which hurt me more than I could explain. And she didn't mean to hurt me, not at all. When she saw how I felt, she became serious again and tried once more to convince me that marriage wasn't the right choice. "I'm old," she said. "I'm turning 33. "Then why not love me just the same?" I replied, pouring out a string of words I couldn't even repeat now. Quintilia paused for a moment, thinking. Then she returned to her idea of friendship. She said that, although I was younger than her, I had the seriousness of an older man and gave her a sense of trust she didn't feel with anyone else. Frustrated, I walked around the room a few times, then sat back down and told her everything. When she learned about my fight with my friend and academy partner and how we had broken apart, she seemed, I don't know how else to say it, hurt or angry. She scolded both of us. "It wasn't worth going so far," she insisted. "You say that because you don't feel the same way," I told her. "But then this is madness." "I believe it is. What I can tell you is that even now, if needed, I would separate from him again, once or 100 times. And I truly believe he would do the same." She looked at me in shock, like someone trying to understand another who has lost their mind. Then she shook her head and repeated that it had been a mistake, that it hadn't been worth it. "Let's stay friends," she said, offering me her hand. "That's impossible. You're asking for something beyond my strength. I could never see you as just a friend. I don't want to force anything on you. I'll even promise not to insist anymore, since you won't accept any other answer now." We exchanged a few more words, and then I left. Look at my hand now. It's still trembling. "And you didn't tell me everything." "No, I didn't. I didn't mention the troubles I went through, or the pain and bitterness that stayed with me. I felt regret, anger. I should have ended this misunderstanding weeks ago, but hope that stubborn, invasive weed took over, choking out better feelings. 5 days later, I traveled to Itabarai, where some inheritance matters from my father required my attention. When I returned, 3 weeks later, I found a letter waiting for me at home written by Quintilia. Oh. I opened it quickly. It had been written 4 days earlier. It was a long letter. It mentioned recent events and said things that were both kind and serious. Quintilia claimed she had waited for me every day, not believing I could be so selfish as to never come back. That's why she wrote to me asking me to treat my personal, unreturned feelings as a finished page in history. She wanted me to forget the lover and just be her friend again, to visit her like we used to. She ended with these unusual words. Want a guarantee? I swear, he'll never marry. I understood then that a bond of moral sympathy connected us. But there was a difference. What was passion to me was to her only a choice of character. We were like two partners entering life's business with unequal investments, on giving everything he had, the other barely a penny. I replied in that spirit, telling her that my love and obedience were so great that I would give in, though unwillingly. After all that had passed between us, I knew I would feel ashamed. I even crossed out the word ridiculous, already written, so I could go see her without that extra embarrassment. One humiliation was enough. I bet you ran after that letter, didn't you? I surely would have. Because either I'm mistaken, or that girl was dying to marry you. Leave your usual psychology aside. This case is very special. Let me guess the rest. The oath was a mystical hook. Then, since you received it, you could free her from it, couldn't you? Especially if you forgave her. But still, rushing to her house? I didn't rush. I went 2 days later. In the meantime, she answered my letter with a warm note. It closed with this thought: don't speak of shame where there was no audience. I went to see her. I came back, again and again. Our friendship slowly returned to what it had been before. We never spoke of the letter. At first, it was hard for me to pretend I felt the same as before. But soon, the demon of hope perched once more in my heart. Without saying anything, I began to believe someday, far in the future, she might finally marry me. That hope was what set me straight in my own eyes, given the situation I was in. Rumors about our engagement spread far and wide. They reached our ears. She denied them formally, and with seriousness. She simply shrugged and laughed. That phase of our lives was the calmest for me, except for a brief incident involving an Austrian diplomat. Or so I thought, a young, elegant, red-haired man with big, charming eyes and noble blood to boot. Quintilia showed herself so graceful to him that he assumed he had won her over and decided to move forward. I believe some unconscious gesture of Minier, perhaps her own sharp intuition, quickly cleared up any misunderstanding at the Austrian embassy. Not long after, she fell ill. That's when our closeness truly deepened. While she recovered, she decided not to go out, which the doctors also advised strongly. I spent many hours there every day. Sometimes we played music, Sometimes we played games together, or someone would read aloud. Most of the time, though, we just talked. That's when I got to know her deeply. Listening to her read, I noticed she found purely romantic books confusing. If the passions described were too intense, she put them aside with clear annoyance. She didn't say this out of ignorance. She had some vague idea of passion and had seen it play out in others. What illness did she suffer from? Spinal disease. The doctors said the condition might not be recent and slowly worsened. By 1859, things had gotten worse. Starting in March of that year, her illness took a serious turn. There was a short pause, but by the end of the month her condition became truly desperate. I've never seen anyone more courageous in the face of certain disaster. At that point, she was painfully thin, almost translucent, as if made of liquid. She smiled, barely laughed, and seeing me hide my tears, she would gently squeeze my hands in gratitude. One day, alone with the doctor, she asked him directly for the truth. He was about to lie, but she told him it was useless. She could spare her the pain, but she already knew. She was lost. Lost, no, the doctor whispered. She swore you wouldn't be ruined, did she? He hesitated. She thanked him for it. Once sure that she would die soon, she followed through with what she had promised herself. You married her, I bet. Don't remind me of that sad ceremony. Or wait, let me remember it, because it brings me some comfort from the past. She wouldn't accept my numero. I begged and begged, but she still married me while I was almost dead. It was on April 18th, 1859. I spent the last 2 days with her, until April 20th, right by her side as she passed away. And I held her for the first time only after she was gone. That's all very strange. I don't know what your science would say about it. Mine, the science of a regular person, thinks that girl had a purely physical disgust for marriage. She got married when she was already halfway gone, standing at the gates of nothing. Call her a monster, if you want, but add that she was divine.
Thank you for listening so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever a new book is read. Have you heard of Machado de Assis? Machado de Assis, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1839, is considered one of the greatest writers in Brazilian literature and a master of psychological realism. He was a novelist, poet, playwright, and short story writer whose works explore the complexities of human behavior with irony, subtlety, and deep introspection. Among his most famous novels are Dom Casmurro, which questions truth and memory, and the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, a satirical narrative told by a deceased man. Machado's literature often reflects the contradictions of Brazilian society, addressing issues like race, class, power, and identity in a sophisticated yet accessible style. Despite being born into poverty and facing racial prejudice, Machado de Assis rose to become the president of the Brazilian Academy of Letters and a symbol of literary excellence. His sharp wit and profound observations about society and the human soul make his works timeless and universally relevant. Today, he is recognized not only as a Brazilian icon, but also as a world-class author whose legacy continues to influence generations of writers and thinkers. Machado de Assis shows us that literature can be both elegant and critical, intimate and universal, humorous and profound. His stories remain as powerful and thought-provoking today as they were more than a century ago. Machado is a treasure of world literature, and through his voice, we discover the infinite layers of the human experience.